welcome to a very special episode of the Working on Wellbeing podcast by the World Wellbeing Movement. The podcast that allows you to be a fly on the wall during conversations with the world's leading wellbeing experts. I'm your host, Sarah Cunningham, and in today's episode, we are here at the World Happiness Summit in London. So I'm excited to dive in, but before we do, I just want to take a moment to thank our series sponsor, S&P Global. The world's leading organizations rely on S&P Global for the essential intelligence they need to make confident decisions. S&P Global, powering global markets. Now, I could not be more excited to introduce today's guest, CEO of WOHASU, founder of the World Happiness Summit, a leading happiness and wellbeing expert, and the author of this newly published book, Cultivating Happiness, Overcome Trauma and Positively Transform Your Life. Some of you may remember Karen Guggenheim from our first ever podcast episode. Back then, I was so nervous as a rookie podcast host, but Karen's warmth, kindness, and positivity helped calm my nerves on that day. So she shared at the time a little bit about WOHASU and some of her own personal journey. I could not be more excited to be interviewing her on the week of her book launch here at the World Happiness Summit. Karen Guggenheim, my goodness, you are so welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having me again. And it is my absolute pleasure and honor to be with you and share this precious time that we have together. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your generosity and your friendship.
Oh, and thank you for your mentorship, generosity and friendship. And, this is a busy 2 days. So thank you for taking the time out to do this interview. But let's jump into it.
Absolutely.
So I want to start by hearing, how does it feel to bring WOHASU, the World Happiness Summit, to London for the first time?
I have to tell you that I am so excited with the reception. It has been just magnificent. Every year, it keeps getting better and better and better. And last year, we were in Lake Como, and it was magical and beautiful. And now being here in London, in such a vibrant city, and it's a gateway to so much of the world. And I was just doing a book signing right now, and it was so wonderful. There were people from Dominican Republic, Ukraine, Croatia, Greece, Ireland, all over the place, Kenya, Brazil, the United States. So it's just wonderful to be able to be in London and to have that ability for so many people to be here and share this magnificent moment in time. I do think it's a moment in time. As you know, we had the Surgeon General of the United States here yesterday, Dr. Vivek Murthy, and it just felt like a watershed moment.
It really did. And I want to hear more about some of your highlights. We're on day 2 today. And so we've already had quite a number of speakers. But just before I go into your highlights, there will be listeners who won't be familiar with WOHASU. Can you give us a snapshot of what it is and also why it's so important in today's age?
So the World Happiness Summit is our signature event, and it's really our main purpose in WOHASU. And we started WOHASU in 2016. The first summit was in Miami in 2017. And the idea is to gather the world's leading experts and practitioners in the science of happiness and well-being so that we can positively transform lives of individuals, organizations, educational institutions, and of course, communities. And policy is very important, as you know. We collaborated on the World Wellbeing Policy Forum and March 18th at London School of Economics. And so it's again about bringing this movement into practice. And so we use science, which is incredibly important to have an evidence-based approach, but also to put it in a practical way. And so with the summit, we gather a global audience in person and online to learn from the speakers and then to begin to take action in their own lives for themselves, their families, their communities, their workplaces, because it's so important. As we know, we're living global challenges that can be very frightening. And at the same time, there's solutions that have been studied and approved by the leading universities in the world that say that these practices work if implemented in a systematic and also habitual way. So we can do something. We can learn to become happier, healthier. We can have thriving lives. And I just want to say that it's really about other people. And so if we can show up for other people and increase belonging and kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and understand that these are really uh, not soft skills, but really primary and important skills that then can then create more win-win scenarios and give us more opportunities for growth, but healthy and sustainable growth.
Yeah, and you mentioned the importance of kindness, something I really want to reinforce actually. And you have shown me such kindness since we first met, probably about just over a year ago at this stage, maybe a year and a half ago. One of my favorite guests on the podcast series so far has been Dr. Kelly Harding, who I met through you, who spoke at this conference yesterday and who spoke last year as well. She's really been one of my highlights of the World Happiness Summit. Her research is all about the physical and mental health impacts of kindness. We're on day 2. There's been so many incredible speakers. You've already mentioned Dr. Vivek Murthy. Can you tell us what your highlights so far have been?
I have to tell you that all of it is a highlight because it's different nuggets. So yesterday we began with Dr. Arthur Brooks from Harvard Business School, and I just love that he brought a different way to the conversations that we're having, and he was funny, and he was engaging, and he was real, and I just love the different speakers who bring this subject to life. And so whether it was today, Michael Steger talking about purpose, he's the world's leading expert on purpose. We had Ala Klimenko, positive psychologist from Ukraine, also to create a talk that was engaging and participatory, so bringing the science in a different way. Last year, we had a concert pianist, and this year we have Rob Stevenson doing this amazing, amazing, wonderful DJ work and showing why music impacts well-being. We have amazing MCs, so Jen Fisher. She founded the position of Chief Wellbeing Officer at Deloitte, which is like, we talk about that a lot now, that so many companies have it, but she did it close to 10 years ago and nobody was talking about it. And so that's kind of heroic in the workplace. And Sarah Blanchard was wonderful, and she was actually a teaching assistant of Tal Ben-Shahar at Harvard in that famous class on happiness. So she's been studying and teaching and promoting happiness for quite a long time. So really, it's just been an amazing, amazing, fulfillment of our hard work and in our vision, and to see the children today of Junk Couture.
Tell us more about Junk Couture, because this is so special.
It was amazing. I mean, these kids, they're designers, and so but they design with junk. And when I say junk, it's magnificent what they do with it because they're actually designers, and so they create beautiful, meaningful, and purposeful clothing out of junk. And the theme this year is purpose. So we're showing different ways on how we get to live our purpose. And it's also International Day of Happiness. So happy International Day of Happiness. And as you know, the World Happiness Report will have a European launch later today. So we're very, very excited about that. And we're going to talk about youth well-being. So we've been talking about that as well. And we're going to have a panel as well on future generations. So it's really about happiness now and also sustainable happiness and well-being for the future.
So there's a lot in that. First of all, on Junk Couture, we're going to try and bring up some B-roll footage. So for those who are watching this on YouTube, they'll get to see the footage of the amazing designers, incredible designers. It's also worth saying it is International Day of Happiness, and wishing you a very happy International Day of Happiness as well. We're not broadcasting live, so it won't be International Day of Happiness when people do watch this back. But there will be a lot of people listening who have FOMO. fear of missing out because they haven't been able to come to the World Happiness Summit this year. Is there any way that they can access all of these incredible talks that you've been discussing?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we will be also sharing them on our YouTube channel at WOHASU. So please like and subscribe on that one, and that will keep you up to date on all the as the material comes out and the content comes out. And we have also content from past summits, so they can see your amazing talk from last year and also this year. So I invite everyone to take a look, and also they can see their policy forum, which is incredibly important as well, so that we can all be agents of change, because it doesn't matter what size the change and the choice you make, because it's about aggregate change of many, many people. So I think that's something that I want to highlight. People sometimes get overwhelmed with, well, I'm not going to launch a movement. Well, I'm not going to be managing director of this organization or something like that. And that doesn't matter. You know, a smile at somebody that does something for you, or highlighting all the wonderful things in our lives, because we get stuck sometimes with the challenges, and those are challenging and maybe even painful, and that's true, and it's important to feel those emotions. And at the same time, we need to pan out and see the beauty of our lives as well, and to talk about it, to talk about the things that matter. And so with the World Happiness Summit, we also want to talk about wonderful things. We want to talk about the people who are here, the people who are online, the people who are just learning about it right now and will be there next March. So, you know, it's really, we can make an impact. We are making an impact. That's why it's a movement.
Yeah, and you know, it really feels that way. There's the most incredible positive energy here at the World Happiness Summit. And building on what you said, each and every person can make a difference. I think of myself as a small drop in the waterfall of change, and without all of these incredible connections, we can't achieve that change. LaFawn Davis, who is the Senior Vice President of Environmental, Social and Governance in Indeed, she spoke yesterday. She was also a previous guest on the podcast, but she said something that really struck me. She said, there is greatness in you. There is greatness in everyone. And we all have a purpose. And we should harness our greatness to achieve that purpose. And I thought it was a really nice way of remotivating people, because we can spend too long in our heads, maybe being a bit negative and thinking we can't make a difference, but we can. Are there actions that people listening can take, both for themselves to improve their own happiness, but also to improve that of others around them?
Yes, absolutely. And something that struck me in today's human sustainability panel, which was amazing, chaired by Jen Fisher, and also the founder of John Couture, is that, you know, especially these designers, there were creatives growing up, and so sometimes when children are growing up, they're told about traditional occupations, right? And if your strength or your interest or your passion is not accounting or medicine or law or teaching, then you feel like left out, or that perhaps you don't fully matter, right? So I think that sometimes we lose sight that we have greatness, because perhaps we don't have greatness in those four things, but it doesn't mean that we don't have greatness in something else. So I think that we need to really expand the definition of success, and the definition of strengths, and the definition of abilities. For example, I'm dyslexic, and I love this campaign that there is called Made by Dyslexia. So I think that part of my greatness is dyslexia, right? Because I think a different way, and I can envision in space and the way that I see events unfolding, and I've used that strength to do my work. And so definitely accounting and finance are not my forte, right?
Yeah.
But if we put people in buckets, right, then we may accidentally cloud greatness.
Yes.
And so I invite us to really take a look at education and expand it, and increase the possibilities of children to be great at different things and at different paces as well.
Yeah.
We want children to mature equally at the same time, right? Because it's just easier for the system. But it happens that you may mature later. So, for example, in my case, I'd had a really hard time learning to read, but I became a journalist
Oh, wow.
and I'm a storyteller and I wrote my book in 3 weeks. So, it's you just need some time sometimes and belief in someone to believe in you.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I think something that has really helped me is my mentors and my sponsors and having people who have believed in me. And I've talked about it before, but I've suffered from severe generalized anxiety disorder, severe panic attacks. But thanks to support of mentors like you, I'm going up on stage in 2 hours to give a talk to 1,000 people.
And you're going to be great. That's your
You-
greatness. And you're not going to be perfect.
No.
That doesn't matter.
Exactly,
It doesn't
exactly.
matter.
And I think for anybody listening to this, the takeout should be you became a journalist in spite of your dyslexia, but it wasn't in spite of it. It was probably because of all of the creativity that it brings to you. But you've mentioned a little bit the World Wellbeing Policy Forum, and I had the absolute honour of collaborating with you. This is organised by WOHASU in collaboration with the World Wellbeing Movement. Can you talk a little bit about the objective of that, how that's maybe different from the World Happiness Summit and what you're hoping to achieve from it?
Absolutely. And I want to highlight first that speaking to the people who are listening, start. So as you well know, it wasn't perfect when we started it, and the event was not perfect, but it was magnificent and important. And so I think we have a fear of engagement, and maybe it is social media. It shows us that everything is perfect. You have to be perfect. And so we launched it on Monday, and it was so impressive and amazing. And we talked about policy. So you chaired an amazing panel with two MPs of opposing parties, and beyond what they were saying, we got to see road modeling, which is also what Alberto Noves was talking about when he talked on the role of business panel, that leaders have to road model the behavior that they're asking for us to see, whether it's a parent, whether it's a teacher, or whether it's your manager, right? Or your leader, government leader. And so these two government leaders were able to talk to each other. And they were funny and they were engaging and they can have completely different points of views, but they could speak together and be civil on a stage and actually be quite kind and funny. And we can disagree. And so I think that's really, really important. The policy forum is about putting well-being first in education, in a public policy, and in business, and doing that in a very serious way. So it's more of a serious approach to happiness than the World Happiness Summit, which also advocates for that. But we take a more practical approach in that it's more fun and there's more of the pleasure side. It's also more emotional, I would say, because there's also, such bittersweet stories that we've seen, and something that Dr. Murthy talked about, and I believe it was also Arthur Brooks, that it's the struggle, right? That makes us happy, really, because it's the challenge. And Arthur was talking about when you cheat and you get an A, it doesn't mean it. But when you study and you invest and you get that A, that's the most amazing thing. And he's a professor at Harvard, so that's why he was sharing the story as a professor. And I think that those are the kind of differences. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all doing complementary work. So we're going to say it this way at the forum. We're going to say it this other way at the summit. We're going to say it this other way in the street. When we get a cup of coffee, we're going to say it this way.
Yeah.
And so that's how we elevate happiness and well-being.
And just for anybody who's listening on audio and not watching on YouTube, when Karen said, when you get a coffee, you're going to say it this way, there was a huge smile on her face. And it was all about the social connection and how we can touch people who we have momentary interactions with just by bringing kindness to those interactions with the barista who serves us our coffee or the person who's driving the bus that we, buy a ticket from. We can do good in the world through those micro interactions we have with people.
Absolutely. And you know what we do? We create an opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity. And even if you smile and they don't smile back at you, you're not doing it for that. You are throwing um, seeds into the world, right? And so that is kind of your service. And so I encourage people not to give up. I mean, my God, let's be resilient. If one smile didn't work, try two, try three, try 10. It doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
And maybe in the next interaction, there will be a smile. And maybe if that smile wasn't to you, it's to the next customer. Because remember, we're inside our heads so much.
Yeah.
And with that monkey brain, right? And so we're thinking of different things and we're so overwhelmed with all the information coming in that perhaps we see the smile, but we didn't have time to smile back.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also really, really important to give people grace, right? We need to give people grace and to maybe think on how does it feel in their shoes. And these are all pro-social behaviors that are teachable.
Yeah.
They're learnable. You can learn to do them, and then you can practice them, and they will not cost you anything. And then you can start to build an awareness of how do you feel when you're engaging with these versus screaming at somebody versus shutting a door in somebody's face or cutting somebody off in traffic or on honking. Because biology will tell you there's a cost for that cortisol rush into your system when you're having that fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And then there's also a wonderful endorphin when you experience awe and beauty and kindness and happiness. And how does that feel to you? So the beautiful thing about the work that we do is that it benefits the self and others.
And that's such a good point. It costs nothing to be kind, to be nice to others. But as you say, it benefits others as well as yourself. And of course, there's the ripple effect of kindness. When somebody treats us with kindness, we go about the rest of our day, perhaps in a better mood, perhaps treating others with kindness. But I'd like to switch gear a little bit, because when I first met you, the first ever podcast episode where I was so nervous, but you courageously shared your personal journey, which has been a difficult one. But I was really struck by how you took the learnings and personal experiences and learnings from your journey and threw that into your career and threw that into creating WOHASU, World Happiness Summit, all of these other things. Would you be happy to share some of those defining moments in your own personal journey with the listeners, please?
Sure. And that's the subject of my book, Cultivating Happiness. I think that by now I work in this because it's also good for me. So I have been so blessed by the generosity of the people who are here at the summit or have been at other summits, and they say, this is so wonderful. It's helped me in different ways. And I have to say that I get more because it also, since my own happiness kind of journey began with unhappiness. And so 11 years ago, last week, I lost my husband, Ricardo, and he died of the flu suddenly. And the impact of that loss was quite catastrophic because he was my best friend. He was the father of my children. He was my mate, my buddy, my lover. So many things in one person, right? And so defining a place next to him because I was his wife. And we were very much in love. And so it was a challenge. It was a challenge to want to continue and to live after that. And I did it because of love, because of the love of my children and the commitment. So for me, being a mother is the most amazing and wonderful thing. Being the mother to my sons is the most purposeful, wonderful gift that God, the universe, everything you can imagine has given me. And so I wanted to be there for my children, and I wanted to be the best version of myself for my children. And that meant I had to be happy. And I knew it would be a long journey because I was in shock. The pain would come later. I think it's almost like when you get a bad burn, they say it's bad if it doesn't hurt because it's going to hurt later because the nerves are burned. So that's kind of like how it felt, It was, I felt that the world that I lived in no longer existed, and I was in a new world. And I saw that like the green was a different green, and the blue was a different blue, and the tree that was outside for 20 years is now maybe 1 centimeter to the left. And that's what it felt like. It felt almost real, but not. And then, I decided I chose happiness, and then I didn't know how to do that, but then I said, okay, how about purpose and meaning? I can know I can do that. I can make meaning out of this. I can create purpose, and I'm gonna go find it. I'm gonna go find this. I'm gonna go see what it looks like, and then I let the pain in.
So how do you do that? Because I mean, first of all, thank you for sharing. You've been incredibly brave in sharing your story in conversations like this and in your wonderful book, Cultivating Happiness. And you've done it to help others. And that's what's so incredible here. But how do you choose happiness? How do you choose purpose and meaning? What steps did you take?
When it first happened, I didn't know about the science of happiness. I didn't know about all this work. My first master's degree is in journalism, and I think I'm by nature a storyteller. So it was intuition. It was survival because I knew that being kind of just okay or neutral was not going to give me the footing of what I needed to overcome. So my life had to be in Technicolor, in these beautiful colors that you see on the WOHASU iconography, right? It really had to be that level for me to be able to live and get up from my bed after losing Ricardo. And I say losing, but he's with me, so it's not really lost, I have to say, because I have so much of him in me and my children. I see him in my children all the time. And, let's not be afraid to to explore. And it's okay for it not to be perfect. And it will not be perfect. And there'll be ups and downs. And that's okay. Where are you trending? Don't get stuck. Feel the pain. But okay, you cry, wipe your tears. Turn on music. What works for you? Right? And so I think we wait for like this magic moment where everything is now fine. Life doesn't work like that. But as you go through the pain, release the pain. Go through the pain, release the pain. And then you find out, then there are more moments where you have less pain more often, right? And you let a tincture of time take its course. So we need time, right, to process that in time for pain. Nobody wants to be in pain. No one wants to be in pain. We want to take drugs. We want to drink. We want to run. We want to gamble. We want to sleep. We don't want to feel the pain. But the wonderful thing is, if you feel the pain, you can then feel the happiness. Because if you numb the pain, you numb the happiness, right? And being happy is such a wonderful, wonderful state of being. And also then taking it apart, right? And being like, okay, there's meaning, right? And doing things for others. So it's a grown-up sense of happiness. And there's more than pleasure and giving and understanding the value of protecting the environment, not only for me, but maybe for somebody from 30, 40, 50 years that I'll never even meet, right? And so those are the things that are so impactful. But if we understand and we learn and we take courses, hear TED Talks, hear the podcasts, read books, right? We begin to get a nuanced understanding of this very, very important field. So think about how much we study mathematics, or we study music, or we study languages, literature. We get deep into this learning where people become quite connoisseurs of it. So why shouldn't we be connoisseurs of happiness or connoisseurs of life, so that then we can have an understanding that, okay, this is a challenge, but it's a feeling. Arthur talked about that yesterday as well. It's a feeling, right? They go. Feelings good and bad, good or bad or whatever. It's information that's coming in and out. So see it as information. But if you don't learn that that's what's actually happening, then you're identifying with your feelings. And then you go into the I am angry. I am upset. And then it's very dangerous, because then you get close to I am a victim. And that's a happiness killer.
So you've obviously studied wellbeing science. You have met with, interviewed, spoken with, read books of pretty much most of the leading experts in wellbeing science. We will inevitably have some people listening to this who are struggling with their own happiness or perhaps are dealing with trauma in their own lives. What's your advice to those listeners?
First of all, you're not alone. I struggle with my own happiness. So the good news is you're not alone. Now, and it doesn't matter to struggle. It does not matter. It's okay to struggle.
Yeah.
It's how do we learn to struggle less? And as you struggle less, it builds upon the beautiful thing, it's multiplicative. The same way that sadness can take you down the rabbit hole and grip you, you can get into a grip of happiness and well-being and gratitude and kindness and altruism and all these things. But you do have to put effort, though. You do have to put effort. So give it time. It's not immediate. But what I would say is, take a look at different speakers. So you can go on our YouTube channel. There's so many different speakers. You like one, get their book. Get their book and then get a course, either one of our courses that we have, Elements of Wellbeing Certification or Chief Happiness Officer, whatever, or get somebody else's course.
Yeah.
The one that resonates for you is the one that works for you, right? And so that's a way, in the same way that you would say, okay, I wanna run a marathon, I wanna play golf, I wanna play football. But you think you're gonna go outside and do it? No. The same thing with your well-being. Okay, maybe I'm not fit right now. I know that I need the equipment, I need to get shoes, I need to find out how to do this sport, I need to educate myself, I may need a trainer, right? And we just leave our life, our being, to happenstance.
Yeah.
So if everything's gone well in your life and you have excellent genes in biology, fantastic for you. That's really, really great. But for those of us who need to work on it, there's so much you can do. There's so much within your control, but it requires an investment time. Think about it just like the gym. Just as you go to the gym or learning a new sport or learning to play the piano or whatever it is that you're doing, you naturally understand that will take time. I mean, how much time do we spend in education? What, 18, 20 years? I don't know.
Yeah.
And in the other professions, we keep going. So the good thing is that this doesn't take that long.
Yeah, and I want to pick up on something really important you said, where you used the metaphor of getting a trainer for our physical health. I'm a huge believer in getting professional support. I've personally benefited from psychotherapy, and I highly recommend, if anybody is listening and they're struggling, reach out, seek that professional support, as well as, of course, starting to research wellbeing science at your own pace. Yeah.
You have to do what works for you.
Yeah.
You have to listen to your body. You have to listen to how you're feeling. Professional advice is really, really important. And if you need medical attention, that's very important to get medical attention. It's okay to do that as well. There's no problem around that. There are different ways for this solution. We've gone. We have a lot to do still, but we've gone a long way with reducing the stigma, which is wonderful. And it's also great to check in with a therapist or to check in with a doctor and to talk about these things. I mean, we were talking about loneliness a lot yesterday, right?
Yeah.
It has biological impact on us. So happiness is really about other people and the way that we treat other people.
So let's talk about that, because you've given advice for people who are suffering themselves. But there will also be people listening who will have loved ones that they know are suffering and they're not quite sure how to support them. Or maybe loved ones who are going through the type of trauma you went through, who might have recently lost somebody close to them. How can listeners support others?
I'm going to give you a few things about loss here. First of all, there's no cycle of first you're in this phase, second phase. People grieve in different ways, okay? Yeah. And it's important to hold space for people who are experiencing loss, right? And not to always assume that it's gloom, okay? So Sometimes, like for example, when I was really early in my loss, I wish and I enjoy and I'm so grateful for the friends who asked me to go to the movies because
Yes.
it makes you feel human. What happens when you have trauma? It's so dehumanizing. And so when people treat you like walking on eggshells and you feel so different, you feel so different. The world is so different and you're kind of lost. And then to have people treat you like you're normal, like you want to have a cup of coffee and be there if they want to talk about it. But don't assume that if you make that who they are in their entire life, and we're no longer friends who can go for a walk or play some music or laugh, right? Because now this has happened and this is forever defining a relationship. And I can only share with my case, it takes me further in when you start to want to come out and have somebody hold your hand to lead you out. And for the when you see it in others, so for me that the hardest, most painful part of the grieving process was to see my children suffer.
Yeah.
Because you can't fix it. And as a parent and as a mother, you always want to fix it. And sometimes you have to watch it, because it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt to lose your father at 16 and at 18. And it's horribly disappointing, life changing. Um, and so to hold the space with love for the people we love, you can't say it's, you reiterate, you can't in the beginning, you can't even say it's going to be okay. You just have to watch it and you have to hold them. And then later, or for people who are experiencing different types of challenges that are maybe not as difficult as that, share something that worked for you. Like I can share, for example, I listen to music every morning. I don't wait to want to listen to music. I do it like brushing my teeth. And I know it's going to make me feel better. And you know what? Sometimes when I'm in a bad mood or overwhelmed, or I haven't gotten good sleep, I'm like, well, I don't want to turn this on. What's the purpose? And like, okay, I'm going to turn it up because I made a commitment.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Make a choice. Make a commitment. I know that this works for me, so I'm going to do it. I'm not going to wait to want to do it. It's like we wait to be happy to be happy.
Yeah.
No, do it habitually, right? I also know that for me, game changer if I begin the morning reading something inspirational that, takes me back to like, okay, I have this, I haven't done that, and because we're all like, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, and we begin the day. But it's like, okay, wait a second. If I reset and I change that lens, then I know from experience, because I've been aware and I've noticed that my day will be better, right?
Yeah.
But we're in a rush to make, because oh no, I don't have time for that because I need to be productive. And then you end up being a whole less productive because you're more anxious,
Yeah.
right? And for those of us who have anxiety, it's not a good idea. So you need to take care of that first.
Yeah. And I mean, there's just so much good advice in everything you've said. But let's talk more about self-care. Because we're living in this always on era where we could probably all work 24/7. And we're going to end up burnt out if we do. And you've shared some of your self-care tips, listening to music, reading something inspiring. But can we talk for a moment about the importance of rest, sleep, switching off, not working 24/7? Do you have thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think when people have talked about non-negotiables. So time with friends,
Yeah.
that's also laughter is rest.
Yeah.
Because there are different kinds of rest. There's rest, of course, for sleep but also quiet and being alone, not loneliness, but solitude.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Also, you get the opportunity to be with yourself, which sometimes it takes a bit of getting used to. But then after the challenge, some wonderful things happen and you can think, which is wonderful. Being with a friend can be incredibly restful, and talking about things that just make you happy, or reminiscing, or sharing a success or a need can be rest. just not having your mind constantly on. And you were talking about self-care. I think another one that is really, really big is physical activity. Movement. Move. If you are feeling down, okay, move.
Yeah.
Because biology then will help you. So you don't have to do anything except move and understand that you will most likely feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to also hedge your biology is move in nature.
Yeah.
Because something else happens if you're in nature, right? And so all of a sudden, because you have learned these things, you are aware of them, you haven't moved for like 5 hours because you're working at that computer. And now if you go outside and you walk literally 5 minutes and you breathe consciously, because it's another thing we don't do well, we don't breathe well, and you come back into the space, then you find that biology has helped you out to calm your brain and to energize your body and to get your biology moving. We're creatures of movement, and I think you see it from all the work with the blue zones as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I couldn't agree more. And certainly for me, just walking in nature, hiking is my greatest self-care tip, as well as rest. Just before we move to the rapid fire round, what do you hope that readers will take from your book? Because it's the most incredible book. It's very profound. How do you think readers will be impacted by it?
Well, I can tell you my hope. My hope is that they will read about a story of heartbreak and love and hope and courage
Yeah.
and sharing and happiness, and that life doesn't really turn out the way you plan sometimes, right? And there's a lot that you can't control.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of choices you can make. And most importantly, that you get to tell the story of your life to yourself.
Yeah.
You get to be the protagonist of your life, regardless of what anybody else says about you. You get to define you to you. And that's freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. What wise words. Right. Well, let's go to the rapid fire round. And I've tried to mix up the questions a bit because there's been a little bit too much repetition. So actually, you said that you start your day with a feel-good song. Tell us, what songs put you in a good mood?
Okay, it could be any song from Prince.
Oh,
I love Prince. I love Bob Marley. I love Pearl Jam. So I love Taylor Swift also. I have to say I'm a Swiftie. So more importantly for how she speaks to women's hearts.
yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Can we get Taylor Swift next year at the World Happiness Summit?
You at the World Happiness Summit by request from Sarah Cunningham. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reach out to us at WOHASU and we'll be happy to have you there.
My niece would be the most impressed ever if we got Taylor Swift here. A book. You've read so many. So this is going to be a really hard question. Can you pick 1 or 2 or 3 books that have really inspired you?
I have to tell you, Happiness by Richard Layard.
Yes.
It's such a profound book, much like himself.
Yeah.
Such a profound person, kind and generous person. That book really, for me, was something that laid out the field of what happiness is and what happiness could be. And what I love also about learning from Richard is also to putting happiness into action. So I would have to say Richard's book.
Amazing. If you could go back and you could meet your 18-year-old self, what advice would you have for that young woman?
I would tell her, baby girl, it's not going to be like you want it to be, but it's going to be great.
I love that. Now, Karen, you have seen all sorts of well-being tips. You've probably seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. What I want to know is, what's the weirdest self-care practice that you've encountered?
Gosh, I don't know if it's the weirdest. The one that I think I would be the most afraid of, I'll tell you, jumping into like a frozen lake.
Yeah.
I don't like cold water, but I am trying. I am trying to end the shower with cold water because that's something else that apparently is supposed to be good for biology. I will trust that on science, but it's really, really challenging for me.
So you're not all over the Wim Hof method yet, but you're starting to try and embrace it. You're starting to try and embrace it.
My pinky's in there.
Brilliant. Well, final question. What do you think is the secret to leading a good life?
People, human beings, and you to be a human to other people. Notice people, facilitate people's greatness, right? And notice them and really see them and enjoy each other, enjoy strangers, enjoy friends, and enjoy your time together. Because one thing that I did learn is that this is not a dress rehearsal, my friends. This is it. This is our lives. And so let's make them meaningful and impactful and get to enjoy the time that we have with each other.
Well, Karen, thank you. Thank you for everything you do through the World Happiness Summit, through the various trainings that WOHASU provides, for what you've shared in your book, and for your time and generosity today. And thank you for your friendship and mentorship.
My pleasure, Sarah. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. Thank you so much. And thank you for the amazing, amazing work that you do. Thank you.